Hello, hello, hello to everyone, and thank you for being here. Th Again, I know it's 1 hour of your probably lunch, or no matter where you are in the world. So again, we're very, very grateful for you to be here. Me myself, I'm excited. We have an amazing guest who's going to be sharing her journey, some of the projects she's been on, and just an all round of hearing it from someone who's in the trenches and living within those realms as well. So, again, no further ado, I introduce Katie. Is it Katie Color? Because I know my accent's all mixed. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Katie?
correct. Just like a dog collar.
Okay, okay, fantastic, good. So, yeah, before we get to what projects you're actually doing right now, Katie, can you tell us where it all started and yeah, where it all started along your journey?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to be here and thank you for having me. I think for me, I started just playing, playing with my family, playing with my parents. I got introduced to the game very young, kind of when I could walk, basically. Came from a soccer family. Both parents still play to this day, brother and mom and dad. So loved it like, from a young age. And I remember some of my kind of earlier memories hanging out with my dad watching, soccer on Saturday mornings. So that's where I kind of, got introduced to it, got started, and then continued kind of my journey from there, I guess, both, playing and coaching.
Yeah, fantastic, good. So when did the bug come to decide to get into coaching?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great question. For me, it came super late, actually. I didn't know that I wanted to coach necessarily. I did start coaching young, so in grassroots, within the Foothills program. I actually started with Pass Academy with Tommy Wheeldon Jr. He brought me in when I was about 14 or 15, and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you coach." And so I did it just for fun. I like the kids and I love the game, and never at any point did I think, hey, I want to do this for the rest of my life at that point necessarily. But
Yeah.
I would say, I kind of got to that point as, I progressed through my career in university. And I had an old coach of mine, Graham Kennedy, who called me up and said, "Hey, I'd love you. I know you're graduating university this year, and I'm not sure if you have any plans, but I'd love you to come and assist me at St. FX University." And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure, Graham. I'm kind of trying to go elsewhere and that kind of
Yeah.
thing." And then decided to take a chance on it and see how it went. And he said, "I thought you'd be really good, and I'd love to have you." So I went out there for 6 months, and then that was kind of the start to where I am now, I guess, working out there and starting professionally in the game.
Fantastic. And can you, for the viewers that have obviously joined in, give us what was some of your playing? What was your travels? Where did you go? Did you play locally and then did you go elsewhere? Just so we all know.
Yeah, no, totally. I started actually in kind of grassroots on a boys team within the Hillhurst Sunnyside community, coached by my parents together, and then from there started at Chinooks for a couple of years, and then through my kind of youth career was at Foothills. So from the point of about 14 on. Played for Foothills all the way through for Graham Kennedy and Troy Flannery and all the people that are still around in the game. And,
Hmm.
had a great experience, won a couple national championships, and then went off to university in Kentucky. So I went to Eastern Kentucky University, had a interesting experience there, to say the least. Loved it, hated it, all in the same time. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so from a playing perspective, I mean, outside of tournaments and things, San Diego Surf Cup, Seattle, got lots of travels, but ended up in Kentucky for university.
Good. And just again, because I'm going to keep digging a little
Yeah,
bit because I
yeah.
think you've got such a beautiful story that I want to share. So what got you through some of those? Because you're away from home, you're in a different country. What got you through some of those things without, again, I'm not getting into your personal details, but what got you through?
Yeah, no,
Just
definitely. I think that the kind of saving grace when you go away from home as an athlete is it you're automatically provided with a community. So as soon as you step on campus, you have your coach who's looking out for you. They brought you in on purpose. So they want you there. They want you to be okay. And have a good experience for the most part. So you have that as a support system, and then you immediately step into a family of players and girls that are similar mindset, similar stage of life, similar mentality, and it gives you kind of that early connection that if you were to go away from home and not have that immediate kind of community, then you might not have the support. And it might be a little bit harder. So I think for me, I was a camp kid, so I was away from home, over the summers. I went to Camp Chief Hector. So I was a little bit used to being away from home. Definitely not for 6-7 months at a time. But I think that helps as well, because you get that experience and kind of being a little bit self-sufficient. And then, like I said, that community that is provided through you or to you through sport, I think is the most important part of that, because they're there to help you not fail.
Yeah.
They're there to help you, succeed, and it reflects well on the university and on the athletes. So I think that's the important piece that really helped me kind of, when I'm away from home and away from family, get through, especially the first 6 months when it's a whole new world.
Yeah, can imagine. So it's not just the soccer portion, it's the mental portion, it's the school portion, it's
Yeah,
everything that's going on, possibly just outside of soccer, right? Which,
yeah,
from what I'm hearing, obviously your youth career took you helped you along those barriers, or not even barriers, just different environments and things you had to deal with,
yeah,
correct?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. So then you've finished kicking butt in the States. You then return back to Canada, and then St. FX, did you say it was? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So started with St. FX. I was there for a season. Had the time of my life. Lived on a little cabin overlooking the ocean. Coaching university, day in and day out with the kind of amazing group of girls that we had there. I couldn't have asked for a better kind of first team, introducing me to being, a professional in the game, I guess.
Hmm.
And then, from there, I got a job opportunity in Halifax, Nova Scotia, at Halifax County, which, is a club, quite a big club in Halifax. And that was quite the experience for me. I think, the amount that I grew as a person, moving away from home to a city that I didn't really know anybody. I knew people at Antigonish, which is 3 hours away or 2 hours away, knew people through people, but didn't really have that kind of immediate community there, and had to kind of find my way a little bit as, a
Hmm.
new kind of adult, I
Yeah.
guess. And that was very cool. So I started as the academy director there, and worked with some amazing people through Soccer Nova Scotia and through the club. Had a lot of kind of cool mentorship opportunities with them, and some people that really are influential in the game, and have done some really cool things in Nova Scotia. So that was kind of the, I guess, make or break of my, career start, where I went, you know what, I am going to do this, and I am going to try to pursue, the professional career in coaching and in, working in sport. So that's what kind of got me into the stream that I'm in now, I guess.
Fantastic. And what were some of the driving forces that said, I want to do this? What were some of the driving forces, having gone through the journey as a player now, you're slightly making that transition. What were some of the driving forces that said, I want to do it? Were there anything there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a couple things. I think one, was the support of the people that I mentioned when it came to mentorship. So, Mike Wyatt in Nova Scotia, Graham Kennedy, people kind of saying, you're good at this. Like you should keep going.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't really until I started working with people like Cindy Tai as an example, other female coaches, that I was like kind of, saw somebody that I related to, and thought, hey, she's a powerhouse in this industry. She's done so well for herself. She's managing family life and work life and all of that, and is somebody that I can look up to. And it was kind of, I would say, in that kind of point in my career that I thought, that it's kind of the direction that I want to go, and it could be something that would be attainable for me. And I think that was kind of the point where when I started to work with other, strong female leads and, peers as well, even people that, my roommates were also coaches and
Yeah.
worked in the game. And I started to interact with people like Carmelina Moscato and Rian Wilkinson and have kind of opportunities to see where they come from and how they're moving through the sport. And I think that was what really inspired me to take it on and pursue it full time, I would say. Before that, it was kind of a means to an end in the sense that I wasn't sure that that's what I wanted to do. And obviously, I loved working with the kids and I loved the coaching aspect, but I wasn't sure if it was my career path. And I think that those interactions with those type of kind of strong women in the game really helped me to kind of curb my interest and really pursue it further.
Fantastic. I love that. There were so many things within that, but if I kind of take little tidbits out of it, was the environment. Not only the relationships, but having the opportunity to feel some of those environments and see it, interact with some of your peers, mentors, people you looked up to. And again, we talk about that with, especially the youth coming up nowadays, how important that is. It's not just the soccer portion, it's the relationships and the environment. So it's just so refreshing to hear this from you, Katie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So brilliant. So we've obviously transferred, quite a few years. We're now heading towards where we are now. So fill us in on some of the things the last couple of years you've been doing and with the organizations you've been involved in and stuff, so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was about a year and a half ago, or maybe a little bit longer. I was offered a job as the soccer director at a camp in Massachusetts. Very kind of out of the blue. I was ready. I think had been in Nova Scotia for 3 years. Had kind of moved up a little bit in the organization that I was working in. Had been working in the Rex program for the 3 years. Had some cool opportunities to get licensed and all of those type of things. And I was missing home a little bit, I have to say. I was away for university. I hadn't been visiting home, obviously, but hadn't really lived around, family and friends and, friends having babies and things like that you're missing out on in a long time. So I was looking to kind of make my way back home, I would say. I was ready to kind of make the move and pursue other opportunities as well and be in kind of an environment where there is further opportunities above what I was doing in Nova Scotia. So I went out to Massachusetts to this great camp. It's called Berkshire Academy for Girls. And it's a soccer camp. It's an overnight soccer camp. It's like Camp Chief Hector, but it's all soccer based, and it's all about mental skills and having powerful female mentors and bringing in some really cool master coaches that are working in the game. And so I got to connect with some really cool people there as well. In a different light. Camp life is a lot different than high performance stream life.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it kind of changed my view on some things for sure, and it helped influence, I would say, a little bit in what I'm doing now with women in sport and chasing kind of the mental skills piece within the organization that I'm in now. From there, I came back home and called up my old club Foothills and said, "Hey, I'm moving home, and I'd love to have a chat about my future in the game, and if you guys have or see a place for me fitting into your organization." And then, here we are. So I started in April of last year back with Foothills full-time, working mostly with the 13s to 15 girls, but then, working kind of in and around the girls program as well, in addition to the Rex program prior to the last month, I guess,
Yeah.
within the province as well. So that's kind of, my journey back home and into where I am now, and, really happy to be doing some of the stuff that I'm doing in a kind of cool environment.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and it's funny you mentioned. It's funny how when you're talking to a person, you can find out more and more. Because I was in Massachusetts, so I
Oh
did
yeah.
quite a few U.S. coaching badges when I was in Massachusetts, so it's interesting hearing what you were saying. But I love that. I really love that. And when I say we, I know you're working for, you've got the Foothills badge on and that's an organization, but I'm always coming from a standpoint of Alberta. So we are blessed to have you here and the impact you're having, not only on the girls and the female side, but even the boys as well. Because as you said at the beginning, when you started your journey, you were playing with boys, right? Which I think was fantastic. We hardly hear that. So it's funny how that's how you started and look at your journey and how it's become now. So you mentioned women in sport. So we've got quite a few people on, and some might be aware of it, some might not. Do you want to give us a quick overview of what that program is and some of the things you do within it?
Yeah, absolutely. Love talking about it. It's a super cool passion project, so it's really cool. It's been a lot of fun. So we started in February or so. So the idea kind of came, a little bit before that, but really started to kind of implement some of the stuff that we were doing in February, or tweaking some of the stuff that we had already been doing. So built the program around three main pillars to try to, one, increase the participation of girls in sport across, not just our organization, but hopefully across the city or across the province. What we've been doing to start is a little bit more localized, but would love to start to kind of form those partnerships with, other clubs and organizations, and start to grow it to a provincial standpoint, because we've seen some really cool things happen out of it, and some really cool relationships form. So the first one that we looked at was kind of recruitment and retention of girls in sport. So how do we get more girls to come out and try sport? How do we get more girls to stick in sport? And in our sport, and not necessarily, all over the place, and trying to get, build that capacity of girls. And then how do we keep them? So, at the main drop-off points, I did a lot of research into where we were losing girls, specifically in our organization, whether it was to other clubs, other sports, or just quitting soccer altogether. What are the ages that we typically see a fall off, and why? So I did a lot of research into that, and then kind of looked at building a program around kind of impacting those pieces. The second pillar was around leadership development. So, building leadership capacity in some of the super talented young women that we have coming through, not just our program, but university programs as well. So, not just kind of setting expectations and saying, we're going to have X amount of women, female coaches coaching girls. We're going to have X amount of assistant coaches. I think that's all really good stuff, and we are doing some of that as well to try to, bring in more female leaders on the girls' side, but also to prepare some of our young ladies, not just from a coaching perspective, but from a more broad leadership perspective in what they could pursue in their next steps in life. So whether it's coaching or teaching or, any kind of leadership position that they could step into, preparing them and giving them those tools and experience from that perspective, so that when they do get there, they're ready to be there, and we've set them up to succeed. Because I find that there's so many women in sport initiatives around, the province, around the world, really, around, getting more females in leadership positions and all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. And so I think it's our goal then to make sure that ours are ready when they get there, and ready to succeed. It's also about connecting our community. So allowing those young women to see and connect with people who are already into their careers and doing things from a leadership perspective and having success, and have, broken down barriers, or have, run into problems or any of that kind of stuff, just to kind of share their stories with them. But then also on the flip side, having them, apply that to becoming role models for our youth system. So providing leadership training to our younger players through our now trained leadership program, which has been a super cool process. And it just connects, young women to the next generation, and then the next generation above that. And I think it's been a really cool process to see our girls, one, really grow, but also then start to aspire to do more. So I think that those are kind of the cool pieces. And then the last pillar for our Women in Sport program is growing the pathway. And, that's the one that a lot of people see on, more of a public scale when it comes to the UWS team that we have, bringing in, kind of tying together our pathway to make sure that the girls whatever they're aspiring to get to, we have something for them. So, we have a young 2005 born who wants to play for the national team. How do we get her there, right? And how do we provide her somewhere to play all the way through to get her there? And then, we have a tier 2 player who wants to play in university. Where does her pathway go, and what does that look like? And do we provide her enough to be able to get to where she wants to be? So I think across the board, that pathway piece, we're not just talking at the top end. Obviously, that's the one that everybody loves to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think that one is incredibly important. And I think there's a massive miss right there right now within, not necessarily just the province, but and the country as a whole, where we're looking to kind of connect that, I would say, and working to help that, but also making sure that we can have and provide a pathway for women to play for life. So, myself and some of my old teammates playing in a women's league for fun, right, with people of our age that we enjoy playing with and being around. And so I think the pathway piece is all the way through. How do we allow a spot for all of our girls to play?
Yeah, oh my God, there's so much there that I so loved. And it was funny because I was thinking something and then you said it at the end, which is play for life, right? Because sometimes you're right, we do focus on the top end sometimes, and whether it's as a province, whether it's as a country. But you said it at the beginning, which was when these girls come in, it's introducing them to the sport, whether it's seeing if they like it, forget the competitiveness and all of that, but introduce them to the sport. And then you ended it with carrying on within the sport, playing for life. And I just love how you connected the dots there. But you mentioned it as well about hopefully forming some partnerships. Well, I'm going to tell you right now in front of everyone, we are going to make sure within this province we're connecting those dots, because it's amazing and impactful what you're doing. You and everyone involved. I know Carmen's on the call as well, who's obviously been involved in women in sport. But the more and more I educate myself and learn more about it, the more I just want to, within the relationship part, and whatever I can do to keep promoting it and keep making it happen, because I love the fact that you're impacting lives, not only within the sport, but outside of the sport, and where that child can get to as well. So it's not about games and 3 points on where you finish. This is a bigger, and I said this in a talk last week, for Sport for All, Sport for Life, just the impact. So I love this, Katie, really do, because I love when the sport, we use the sport as a frame, but we impact lives, because that's the bigger goal here. So kudos to you. Kudos. Now, by the way, I did say at the beginning, for everyone on the call, and by the way, these are my glasses. I do need them. It's not a fashion statement, okay? Because I had a few people like, oh, you've got more fashion on us. I'm like, no, I just can't see. But if you do need to chime in with a question, don't be afraid. If you want to come on live and ask a question for Katie, by all means. Again, I know not everyone's comfortable with that, so if you want to put something in the chat box, hang away, because again, we've got amazing guests here who's continues to educate us and share so much as well. So please, just do that if there is a question. Good. So I do want to continue, Katie. So any new projects going on right now outside of women in sport?
Not too much for I mean, I think we keep building on the women in sport platform, I guess. So as we kind of work through and kind of, it's almost trial and error, right? We had this grand idea for this program and these 3 pillars that we were working towards, and they were quite broad goals. And I think we've kind of started within that to have these smaller projects. So one of the things that we're doing this weekend is just a drop-in grassroots girls event, just all girls. The coolest part of it is we've had volunteers from the club. So we did this a couple weeks ago, and obviously, with social distancing and all those types of things in place and sanitization, have to say that. But having, we opened it up to some of our young players just to have the opportunity to volunteer, and we had 56 volunteers.
Wow.
Within like a 4-year age band. So like our U13s to U16s, we had 56 volunteers for a weekend. And that was such a cool thing to see, because they come out to the field and they're all excited to be there, and they each have their own little station, and only 2 of the 11 stations were really soccer specific. Like one of them was, can you lift this thing over your head and as as quick as you can, right? Like,
Yeah.
can you put this cone on your head and run straight? Like, so it just getting the kids out interacting with some of our youth players, and
Yeah.
and they were amazing. Like these girls, 13 years old, are out at the field, interacting with these 4 or 5-year-old, next generation of young, athletes, and or not,
Yeah.
but interacting with them, and kind of, it was cool to see them outside of the field, and kind of being themselves, and having that. So those types of things, I guess, a project within a project, that would be a big one for us. Like I said, the pathway piece is a big one that we continue to look at and continue to try to grow when it comes to, not just UWS Stream, but how do we, put the pieces together within our club, and then beyond, up through that side. The leadership program is one that we're looking to grow. So, within that, I had a couple connections with people outside of the province that they're like, hey, we would love to do something like this. And we would love, what are you guys doing? And then how can we connect it to make it a bigger community of female leaders? And how do we continue to grow that? So again, a project within a project, I would say. So
Yeah.
that's some of the kind of main stuff on the docket for the next little bit, I think, for me anyways. And then, as a club, obviously working towards, return to play and in the league, and all of those types of things moving into the winter. So yeah.
Fantastic. What just again, because I keep bringing out questions based on not everyone might hear something but not fully understand it. UWS.
Yeah.
UWS, what's that?
So UWS is our pro-am pathway. So that's kind of the pinnacle, I guess, of our pathway at the club on the girls' side. So, last year we hosted the national championship for the United Women's League. It is a U.S.-based league, so it's based out of the United States. Last year there were 2 Canadian teams. Previously we were the only Canadian team, and it's kind of it's a great opportunity for us to showcase our homegrown Canadian players. We've had a couple come through that program and go on to U20, CONCACAF and U20 camps. Tanya Boychuk from Edmonton,
Yeah.
Kaylee Books, Maya Jones, all came through and played in the UWS system, and also through Rex and all those types of things, and then went on this year to a U20 camp, which was very cool. Alex Lamontagne has had lots of success from a professional perspective, going away to play. Joelle Goslin, a couple players that have gone on,
Yeah.
and gone to play professionally, and then on the kind of flip side, providing that opportunity for some of our young players to come in and play with those type of players and get that experience and showcase what they can do. Grace Doherty last year, 2002 born player, gone to Memphis this year, played 90 minutes in the national final and was a rock star, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's been a part of her pathway for the last couple of years. So, providing aspiring young athletes to somewhere for them to continue their journey above and beyond, where they could have been, maybe 5 years ago, or there wasn't that opportunity for me when I went through. So
Yeah.
for them to continue that and continue to chase their dreams, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love that. For we might have parents who are on the call right now. What are some of the, and they might have female, girls as children, who are playing the sport. What are some of the things you would recommend, whether they're at, your organization, or could be new getting into this? What are some of the things you would advise parents of female kids, having been there?
Yeah. Let them love it. Let them enjoy it. Let them be themselves. Don't, I think sometimes we get caught up in the perception of what level they're playing at, or, what tier they're in, or, how they're rated against their teammates, and it takes away from the experience, I would say, for the young girls that are coming through and just want to play for fun, right? And for the most part, across the board, they're getting feedback from coaches, they're getting feedback from teammates. When they're on the field, they know when they've done something wrong. They know when they've done something right for the most part. And I think as parents, it's being that support system, being their biggest cheerleader, and allowing them to explore the sport and enjoy the sport on their own. I think is very important, because you see so often the opinion of the kid is different than the opinion of the parent, and then you start to see that kind of come out when they're on the field and struggle with, whether it's a coach or a staff member or a teammate. So I think the biggest advice is to be their cheerleader, be their support system, and let them explore and enjoy the game and make their connections and kind of set their own goals. Obviously they need support with that, but it's about what they want. It's not about what coaches want or parents want or friends want. It's about what they want. So I think that's the most important piece for me.
Yeah, that's vital. It's about what they want, because no one wants to be doing anything that they don't want to be doing, right? We can all do it, but we do it with a different mindset when we don't really want to do it, right? So it's a different mindset to when we're doing something because we really enjoy doing it or we love doing it, right? So I think that's massive, Katie. For parents out there who, because we come across situations where probably they do want to talk to someone to get advice and things like that. Is there something out there from a female perspective you'd recommend, or?
I think reaching out to whichever organization you're in when it comes to that, I think, I've seen a growth in females working full time within organizations.
Yeah.
We are a good resource because we have been a 13-year-old girl playing soccer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We've had that experience. I think, the other side of that, though, is, there's something massive to be said about male coaches and the importance of having male coaches in the female pathway as well. I had male coaches all the way through and loved the game and had a great experience. And, some of them, and I mentioned quite a few of them earlier, kind of, helped shape me into the person that I am, and gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing. So it's not just, the females working in the game that can provide you with support for that. I would say, if you have a good relationship with a staff member at a club or a coach, that you feel really has the best interests of your child at heart, or has a good kind of perspective, I think those are your resources.
Yeah.
There is definitely organizations that target women in sport and keeping girls in sport. Fast and Female is one that we partnered with early in our journey. We started kind of our very first event was with the Fast and Female organization. Incredible organization.
Yeah.
Can't say enough about them. Provided us with resources to run a very cool event. We used our senior leadership group as ambassadors for that. And, it's all about building confidence within sport. It's all about, and outside of sport, it's all about, self-belief and taking away negative talk and all those types of things. So there are definitely organizations through sport that do target females and girls in sports. So there's definitely resources there that you could use as well.
Huge. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. We do have a question from Miss Claire Patterson. Thank you for sharing your story, Katie. One thing that stuck out for me is at the beginning of your coaching journey, you were encouraged and invited in. And then as you grew and gained experience, that seemed to provide you with the confidence to then reach out and create opportunities for yourself. Do you have any recommendations on how to assist other potential new female coaches?
Yes, absolutely. I think the biggest advice is especially if you're in a position to become a mentorship type figure or even just a support system for them. I think that's incredibly important. I think that's, as I mentioned and you kind of mentioned in the question, that really was where it started for me, was the support and the idea that, Tommy Wheeldon thinks I'm good enough. right? Graham Kennedy thinks I'm good enough. Troy Flannery thinks I'm good enough. Leon Hapgood thinks I'm good enough. And then that kind of reinforcement as a young person not knowing what I wanted to do with my life, that reinforcement, I think, got me thinking about it. And then I think from there it was then not just, I guess, providing myself, but being around other kind of mentors and people that, challenged me. I think that was an important one for the confidence that you mentioned in the question. There was so many times that I was thrown into something that I was like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. And then I just kind of put my head down and do it, and I was ready for it. And it was because people, trusted me and believed in me and put me in those situations. I very well could have failed in some of the positions that I, could have been, put into or thrown into. But I didn't. And that what started to build my confidence individually was, being in situations where I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure that I'm going to do well at this, and then working through it and having success. So I would say, early on, to kind of summarize, was definitely the support from outside of people that I respected, saying, I think you should do this. And then it was, people challenging me and kind of throwing me in the deep end at times to make me, realize that I can do it myself. And then it became like the self-talk, I guess, but then it became the internal confidence that helped drive me forward from there.
Yeah, love it. Trust, support, those two words stood out to me. Thank you for that question, Claire. We do have another one. I hope I'm not going to butcher your name right now. Diminju. Hopefully I've said that okay. If I haven't, please, put me right if I haven't. But I'll get to the question. From a coaching perspective, are there some common mistakes to avoid when coaching women, girls versus coaching men, boys? Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question because I think there's a lot of aspects that go into that. I think across the board, girls don't want to be necessarily coached like girls. So if you said to me, when I was coming up as an athlete, do you want to be coached like a girl or an athlete? I want to be coached like an athlete.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about, I would say, the need for authentic relationships with girls and boys as well. I coached a U15 boys team in Nova Scotia, and it's different for sure. You're forming different types of relationships with those players. But I think on the girls' side, them feeling supported, challenged. I think sometimes we kind of steer away from, girls want to be friends. No. We don't want to be friends with our coach, but we do want authentic relationships. We want transparency. I think a big thing that I've found, especially coaching at the university level, is knowing where they stand is so important for girls. Mm-hmm. So, if you are in the middle of the pack in your team and you're struggling to get playing time and you're not really sure why or where you stand or how you get there, I think that it's the questioning and that becomes kind of the self-doubt for girls, and it kind of breeds that negative energy and confidence, lack of confidence. So I think authentic relationships is important. I think being transparent about where they stand, what they need to do to improve or work through their game, and then where they can be, I think is very important, because if you set expectations that are too lofty too early, that can hurt confidence. But if you also don't set expectations, then that also hurts confidence, because they're like, oh, you don't think I can do it, so you're not telling me to get there because you don't think I can. So I guess long story short, I don't think there's too much of a difference, coaching girls and boys from a technical perspective. I don't think there's too much of a difference when it comes to expectations and standards. I do think that girls rely on relationships being authentic and rely on knowing where they stand.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown, because again, it's a reality that we all live in. So again, Dominja, hopefully again I didn't butcher your name, but thank you for that question. And Carmen, Carmen from the office. You're making some great progress for girls in our game and women. Um, did you face any challenges? Let's have a look here. Should I, oh, here we go. Did you face any challenges with your club supporting this type of program initially? Um, any advice to offer to others who are trying to get something up and running who may be from their leadership? Okay, yeah.
Okay. I would say yes and no. The club our club, when we started kind of talking about this, it was actually something that had been thrown around prior to me even starting here. Not necessarily a full kind of women in sport program, but things that we could do to support or better support our girls' side. So things like mental skills and that kind of thing were being brought in and thought about and talked about prior to me starting. And
Okay.
my colleague Alex Valerio as well has been a massive part. We haven't talked about her yet, but what an amazing female role model and female leader in the game as well. She's been a massive part of this program as well. So, when we started initially kind of talking about building this program, there was a lot of support for what we were doing. I would say at times there was a need, not necessarily just in the office, but across, the sport community, the conversations to be had about, changing the way that we talk about women in sport or talk about, females in the game. There was a good example and kind of really recent example would be watching the CPL games and having female analysts on there.
Yeah.
And there's definitely kind of mixed feelings about that. And the way that, we approach that subject, I think is important. And everybody has different opinions. And I think that, it's okay to have your opinion, but it's not, your opinion isn't because they're female. It's because you think that there's a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think it was more curbing that type of conversation. The club support was, very, very, it was incredible, to be honest, across the board. Alex and I sat in meetings with many other members of staff on a weekly basis who were providing feedback or, pushing us to meet deadlines or helping us with, the business side of it or whatever it was. So we were a bit lucky from that perspective, having that support from the club. And the senior leadership at the club, and the continued support as well. So if there's anything that we need throughout this program that we're like, hey, help with this, or can you be here, or can you speak to these people? We have that support and continued support. So that's been really cool and a really kind of very positive piece for us working through it. I would say advice to others trying to do it if you are running into barriers. One, it's not getting frustrated. Sometimes somebody will say something out of, not necessarily because they are bashing women in sport or bashing the leadership of a female leader or because they're female. Part of it's about education. And it's about, no, that's, what you've said has been interpreted this way because of the way that you said it. As opposed to, that person's never going to support women in sport and, you kind of write them off. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned is those type of comments or barriers that you run into is more the education and the conversation as opposed to the kind of pushback and confrontation. I would say that's kind of the best advice from more of a broad perspective. Like I said, the club for us has been super supportive. So we haven't run into too many of those issues.
Yeah, massive shout out to Footles because again, these are things that we never hear of unless someone like yourself or someone actually educates us on that. So again, just to send a massive shout out to Footles because that's huge to hear that they were even having those conversations prior to you coming. So it's not like you've come and have said, oh, we've got a female leader who's here now. Let's start thinking about these things. So we're doing it prior. So hopefully we have many, especially everyone on this call, if you're in an organization and you're not having these conversations, start these conversations because again, it should be happening. And what better time than now with what we're going through? This is, a bit of not the norm, but you know what we're getting used to, the whole video calling, and if you are getting, you know, together, as Katie mentioned, sanitizer, okay? So that's good. Any other questions on here? Because I've heard so much that I'm loving. I've loved this. Let me just check. Any other questions from anyone on here? Um, Before we do start to wind down things on here. Um, oh, here we go. I didn't butcher. I probably didn't butcher the name because Domingo has sent another question. So
It's Damigu.
sorry, say that again.
Damigu, just like it's spelled.
Domingo,
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's correct.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Let's have a look at your question here. Um, any insight on what to do in terms of female players' retention within a team, club, and more importantly, within the sport? Thank you for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when it comes to retention, I think some of the biggest pieces that we try to focus on is one, the community piece. So making players feel like they're a part of a community. It's not just, you know, you and your one friend. It's not just, you know, you within an organization. You are a part of a larger community. So some of the girls' events that we've been running, the Fast and Female event, it gets them together with other like-minded young girls of different ages and provides them with more of a community feel as opposed to a team or club feel, I would say. You know, it becomes more of a culture within the club from that perspective, I think is an important one. I think, you know, making families feel a part of something bigger. So, you know, making them feel like this is not just, you know, your child's soccer experience, right? It is a part of their growth as a person. It's teaching them about, you know, working within a team. It's teaching them about taking feedback. It's teaching them about, you know, dealing with a boss, right, with their coach. It's, you know, how do you approach and ask questions to your coach or your boss in the future? It's about, you know, again, those authentic relationships that, you know, help them grow and become, you know, more confident. It's about learning leadership skills, communication skills, you know, confidence. And bringing that, you know, into different aspects of their life. I think we did I'm not sure if you guys have seen the Women in Sport video that we put out a couple weeks ago, but there's one girl who talks about, you know, one of the opportunities that she's been given because of sport is leadership through school now. So she was quite a quiet kid. You know, she talks about how she, you know, was a little bit introverted, was not overly outspoken. And through kind of her process through soccer, she's become a leader, and she is. Like the kid is a 10 out of 10. Yeah. And now she's being given opportunities through school for leadership. So making families feel a part of something bigger, and that, you know, that includes parents and siblings, right? It's not just about the kid, it's about the family experience. Because at the end of the day, you know, they impact the opinion of the kid as well. And then I think the last piece is then the support through the system, and again, knowing where they stand, but also being given even like perceived opportunity to continue along their path. I think sometimes, you know, people feel or it's the perception that they haven't been given a proper opportunity because it's only, you know, the one tryout season or that one time that they get to play with everybody. One of the things that we've been doing is kind of inner group or inner age group games where they just play, like come out, get together and play, like enjoy it, right? Mix teams and play. And I think, you know, it is a chance for them to, one, you know, be seen with, you know, people of maybe a higher tier, but also, you know, the ones that may not have those type of aspirations. It just gives them a chance to play and not be coached and not have any pressure on them to do anything particular, just enjoy the game. So I think those are kind of the three main things that we try to target. So you know, making them feel a part of something bigger, building them a community, and then giving them opportunities outside of, you know, their current state.
Love it. Love it. And I must stress, because we're in, you know, COVID right now, cohorts. You know?
Yes.
Just to
We have not
stress
been doing that in the last.
okay, Just so we're on the same page, because I get someone going, yeah, promoting everyone play together. No, not at all.
Yeah, no.
Which is great.
No,
Yeah.
that was prior to COVID and
Yeah.
cohorts.
Yeah.
Within the cohorts, which I'm sure a lot of the other clubs were doing, had opportunities for the kids to play within, different age bands in that 50-person cohort. So a smaller scale where we were starting to do that. But prior to the COVID, we did kind of more of a massive, we did one that was like a pizza party. They came and they played and then they had pizza afterwards.
Yeah.
So, that's
Love it.
for the distant future once we get out of cohorts.
Love it. Love it. The
Yeah.
video that you mentioned, is this somehow we can get a hold of the video, or is it? And if you want, what we can do, if it's easier, is if you could, when we get off this, Katie, you could send it to me, and then if it's okay with everyone on here, we'll send it to everyone via email,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So it
Yeah.
is, if you were interested, I will send it to you so that you can send it around and share it.
Yeah.
We have been doing Women in Sport Wednesdays on social media. So on every Wednesday, we've posted a new video, starting with kind of the overarching Women in Sport one that kind of promotes, why women in sport, why sport for girls, what's important about it, what are the opportunities, that type of thing. Kind of a highlight video of that. And then each week we have a new topic. So last week was the opportunities that you've been given through sport that you may not have had otherwise. There was one that was on the importance of sport in the lives of young girls. There was one about role models. So, who are your role models, and, how do you, why do you look up to them, and how do you continue on that? So on Twitter and Instagram, we've been doing kind of a Women in Sport Wednesday campaign, I guess.
Fantastic.
You can call it that. So you can check it out on there, or I can also share the video with you as well.
Yeah, definitely. And again, the more we educate people, the more we get them engaged in this, because again, there'll be people that don't know. So again, that was one of the reasons I've, not only because I know you're amazing, but just because I know what you're doing is amazing, and this is why we wanted you to come on. We do have one more question. Last question. Any advice to a girl who wants to play college soccer in the US, especially how to manage sports study?
Yeah. I think, managing sport and study is not necessarily, specific to US. It could be Canada as well.
Yeah.
It is, something that you do get support on while you're there. So most universities have academic advisors. They have, study hall hours. They have, a lot of support from an academic perspective. It is hard, for sure. I think, if I were to go back and do it again, I would definitely do a little bit more when it comes to balancing study and sport. I kind of lucked out a little bit in one of those people that kind of did half the work but got good grades. So I know, don't tell your daughter that.
Talent.
Don't share that with the girls. But I think, when it comes to the actual management of time and that kind of thing, there's using the resources that are provided to you. So I know, at the University of Calgary, we have academic advisor for the athletics program who checks in all the time about grades, similar to the ones in the US. So I would say advice from that perspective is picking the school or picking schools based on what you want to take as well. I know I was very focused on the athletic piece when I went into university, and ended up, the university that I went to for the program that I took, it was a psychology major. It was a well-known program within the U.S. For psychology. It was one of their kind of top programs within the university. So, but that was almost more so by chance than by design, I would say. So my biggest advice would be to do your research. So look into the schools that you're interested in. How many kids are in a classroom, what works best for you, what does the athletics department do for academic support, do they support, if you're missing because you're in an away game, you're missing class, are you going to have to make that up, or are they going to take away marks, or that kind of thing. So different academic institutions do that differently. Some are very supportive, some are not as supportive. So looking into program specific and university specific. So doing your research, getting to know the coach, I think is important. I think a big one is visiting and spending time with the team, and getting a feel for the team culture. I think that's an incredibly important one, where typically the girls that go down to the US and then end up coming back after their first year or second year, Usually it comes down to either team culture or just the overwhelming ness of where you are in the States. So because it is a different culture there. So I would say biggest advice is doing your research, identifying what you want in a 4-year program. Not just academic but athletic and culture as well. And then looking into schools that tick those boxes for you. So that provides you with that. And, it could be in the US or it could be in Canada as well.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Oh, let's just, Demanga said thank you. So let's have a look here, because I always love to do it. So we have Alexa, Laura, John, Ginny, Diana, Dimunga, Claire, Carmen. I want to thank everyone, and more importantly, Katie, yourself. Hopefully, I'd love to get you back on in whether it be September or even October down the line as well. I'd love to get you back on because there's so much more we could touch on here that I know that so many can continue to learn from and get involved in with some of these projects that you're doing as well. So again, I just want to thank you. Hopefully that didn't feel like it was an interrogation. Hopefully. So thank you everyone again. Enjoy your day, be safe, be healthy, keep spreading the love, and Katie will speak to you soon, and thank you again.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.